What if your healing magic worked perfectly, just not the way anyone expected? Because instead of closing wounds, it tears flesh from bone, floods organs with disease, and melts enemies from the inside out. That's the world Lin Luo woke up, in a world where class rankings define your entire future, where a D-rated priest is considered the bottom of the barrel, and where nobody, not a single person, expects the healer to be the most dangerous thing in the room. But here's the thing about Lin Luo, he wasn't born into this world. He crossed over from somewhere else carrying memories of a different life and a hunger to prove himself. So when that awakening crystal lit up the room with a blinding flash of light, everyone's assumed they were watching the birth of a legendary combat professional. The glow was too intense, too dramatic, too cinematic to mean anything less. Then the notification appeared. Priest, D rating. The silence that followed was almost physical. You could feel it pressing down on the room. And then the whispers started. Healers are almost always female, someone pointed out. A few people laughed, others just stared. One classmate started calling him male mama, which was apparently the funniest thing anyone had heard all semester. Lin Luo stood there, his triumphant expression crumbling in real time, watching a future he'd already imagined for himself evaporate under fluorescent lights. His friend Tang Chang tried to help healers are necessary. Every team needs one, but it landed flat. Lin Luo's response was quieter and somehow scarier. He smiled at the crowd and said if they ever needed healing, he might just let them bleed out. The room got very quiet after that. Even in humiliation, there was something about Lin Luo that made people think twice before laughing again. If they were going to insist on a nickname, he decided Milk Dad was at least better than the alternative. But privately, the weight of that D rank was crushing, especially watching Tang Cheng light up with a C rank Stone Knight class. And then especially watching the moment the room turned blue. A massive pillar of frost erupted from the stage, cold enough that people actually stepped back. Leon Yanning, the school flower, the girl everyone already knew was going somewhere, had awakened as a spirit frost maiden. A minus rating, elite tier, top university guaranteed. She walked away in a flurry of snowflakes while Lin Luo stood in the wreckage of his expectations. The gap between their fates felt like something you could fall into. But Lin Luo wasn't the type to stand still in a gap for long. That same night, alone in his apartment, he pulled up his private status screen. And what he found there rewrote everything. His basic healing skill hadn't just activated, it had mutated. The system called it skin bursting technique. Instead of restoring flesh, it was designed to tear it apart, bypassing a massive portion of the target's defense. Lin Luo stared at his screen for a long moment, and then something clicked into place, a theory, terrifying in its implications. He might be able to mutate every skill he ever learns. Not just heal, invert, corrupt, transform anything designed to help into something designed to destroy. For someone from a wealthy background, the next step was obvious. He grabbed his phone and ordered skill scrolls before the ceremony was even officially over. Two standard priest abilities, recovery art and cleanse art, dissolved into dark energy the moment he learned them. Blood fever technique emerged from the first, a debilitating fever that burns the target from within. Enhanced pain technique came from the second, a spell that doubles whatever agony the victim is already feeling. Lin Luo looked at his new arsenal with the smile of someone who has just realized the game was rigged in their favor all along. Nobody would ever mistake him for a harmless medic again. The exam notification hit his phone before he could even enjoy the moment. Instructor Li Yu had added the class to a group chat 10 days to prepare for the final trial. 10 days wasn't much, but for Lin Luo it would be more than enough. Meanwhile, the social aftermath of the awakening ceremony was already playing out in uncomfortable ways. Leon Yanning stood by the basketball courts the next morning, her mood obvious to anyone who cared to look. A brown-haired friend asked if she was worried about Lin Luo, and Leon Yanning denied it too quickly to be convincing. Her friend didn't push it, but she did say something that stung. Things had changed. An A-rank professional was on a different track now. The distance between them would become permanent if nobody said anything first. The conversation was interrupted by young Han, yellow hair, basketball in hand, the kind of confidence that reads as arrogance from 10 feet away. He congratulated Leon Yanning on her rank and she shut him down immediately. Full name only, her plans are none of your business, walk away. Yang Han did walk away, but his expression had curdled into something darker on the way out. He knew something nobody else did. She'd written love letters to a D-rank priest, and he decided right then that he was going to be merciless about it. None of that mattered to Lin Luo, who was already at the Demon Red Plains by the time any of this was happening. He showed up in white and gold priest robes immaculate, calm, totally out of place, and ignored every single recruitment call at the entrance. A red-haired woman named Sister King offered to protect him. He declined without breaking stride. Her armored companion called him another arrogant rookie. Sister King noticed something different, a composure in his eyes that rookies don't usually have. She filed it away and moved on. Her team had coordinates for a special monster and no time to babysit. Deep in the plains, Lin Luo found a lone rat behind a tree and pointed his staff. Black energy erupted from the tip and the creature disintegrated in a single hit. He'd just killed a level 2 monster so effortlessly it barely registered, and that told him everything he needed to know. His mutations weren't just powerful, they were broken. He worked through his kit, methodically blood fever on the next rat, watching it tremble as internal damage stacked until it collapsed. Enhanced pain on the third, which did nothing, because the spell only amplifies existing suffering. Since the rat wasn't already hurting, there was nothing to amplify. Lesson learned, save it for durable bosses. The experience poured in, he leveled up. He dumped every attribute point into his mental stat to boost his casting power. Over the next 6 days, he kept grinding level 10 rats, one after another, until he hit level 10 himself. The new skill point waiting for him came with a bizarre option on his skill tree. A diseased stomach icon. The system labeled it acute gastroenteritis. For a priest, this was arguably the most disgusting skill available. He learned it immediately. That was the moment a level 15 demonized giant rat leader decided it had watched enough and launched. The boss had come for blood, probably because Lin Luo had wiped out half its subordinates already. He blocked the claws with his staff and retaliated fast. Skin burst to ignore defenses, blood fever to stack internal damage, pain deepening to make it worse. The massive creature writhed and shrieked, and Lin Luo simply sat back on a nearby rock and waited for it to die. This was the part that mattered. Any normal team of 10 professionals would have been fighting for their lives against this boss. He was watching it like a spectator sport, but his quiet moment didn't last long. A group of men in purple robes materialized from the tree-line Star Sea Guild, claiming they owned this entire hunting ground. Their leader gave Lin Luo a choice, leave now or face the consequences. Lin Luo stepped aside, found a spot on a rock, put his earbuds in, and smiled. The guild team moved in on the wounded boss, shouting warnings to each other, barely keeping it together, even with the monster, half dead. Then one of them, an afro-haired member in the middle of the formation, suddenly froze. His face went through 5 different stages of horror in about 2 seconds. And then the acute gastroenteritis hit him like a freight train. The eruption from the back of his pants actually launched him forward with enough force to knock over the teammates next to him. Within seconds, the bald guy felt it, then the woman to his left, then the captain. The captain lost his focus entirely, and the rat boss took full advantage. As the team collapsed around him in biological agony, Lin Luo stood up, his staff glowing dark purple. He unleashed a massive blast of red and black energy, skin bursting and pain deepening combined, that consumed both the boss and the guild members. The battlefield went quiet. He walked through the smoke, collected every loot orb, and noted to himself that it was much more efficient to let others do the hard work first. Reaching level 11, equipped with new gear and a rare skill book, and the realization that he'd barely scratched the surface of what he was capable of. The skill book was titled Virus Transmission, and the moment he learned it, the mutation hit instantly. It transformed into something called Black Death Outbreak. He knew the name from history, the plague that wiped out millions across an entire continent centuries ago. Even at level 1, the system told him this mutated ability could rival a forbidden curse. Paired with his pain amplification, the strategic possibilities made his head spin. He was still turning the idea over when the air in front of him split open with jagged red energy. A massive portal shaped like a door tore itself into existence in the middle of the forest. The Scarlet Altar, a secret realm, freshly born, disappearing the moment it was cleared or abandoned. Difficulty level, designed for professionals between level 10 and 15. Higher risk than a standard dungeon, substantially higher rewards. Lin Luo looked at the portal, looked at his status panel. Then he stepped through. Sister King and her team arrived at that exact spot about 20 minutes later, celebrating a successful mission. They stopped mid-sentence when they saw the portal, and their expressions fell when they realized it was already active. Someone had beaten them to it. Sister King had wanted to gift this realm to her niece Leon Yining, who'd just hit level 10. Now all they could do was wait for whoever was inside to die so they could take over. Inside the realm, Lin Luo found himself in a dark cave full of red altars and blue-skinned lizard men carrying heavy hammers. The mission was simple: clear the monsters and destroy the altars. The lizard men were fast and strong, much more dangerous than the rats he'd been farming. And they had a keen sense of smell, which meant they detected him almost immediately. He hit the first wave with skin bursting and acute gastroenteritis, and they swelled and leaked fluid and dropped fast. But the cave was poorly ventilated, and the resulting stench was so catastrophically bad that Lin Luo nearly gagged on his own attack. Note to self: biological warfare in an enclosed space creates its own casualties. He readjusted, adapted, grabbed his staff and tested different approaches as he moved deeper. Then he found the approach he was looking for. An elite white-skinned lizard man, massive, heavily armored, high physical defense but low magical resistance, was patrolling through the crowd. Lin Luo cast Black Death Outbreak on it from the shadows. Dark veins bulged across the creature's body as it continued its patrol, confused subordinates clustering around it without knowing what they were walking into. The virus moved exponentially, lizard man to lizard man, spreading through the crowded cave like fire through dry paper. Their poor hygiene made it worse, their density made it catastrophic. Lin Luo waited in the shadows, watching the infection reach every corner of the cave. When he was satisfied, he raised his staff and triggered the explosion. Every infected monster detonated in a flash of energy simultaneously. The cave lit up with kill notifications, dozens, then dozens more, and Lin Luo felt the experience washing over him in waves. 6 level ups in rapid succession. He hit level 16. He strolled toward the stone altar, still processing the sheer efficiency of what he'd just done. And then he saw the Scarlet Lizard Priest. It was already wounded from the outbreak, attempting to cast a healing spell on itself. A Silver Lord boss slower desperate, bleeding mana. Lin Luo showed it no mercy. Skin bursting, blood fever, acute gastroenteritis rapid fire, stacked deep. The boss crumpled to its knees, gasping done. He raised his staff to finish the job, and then the altar behind it exploded with dark energy. The spirits of every lizard man he'd killed came screaming back through the air, spiraling into the fallen boss's body. It grew. It stood back up. The rampage mutation white lizard priest bigger, stronger, with health that had reset far beyond where it started. Lin Luo's expression went very flat. The final trial of the Scarlet Altar had only just begun. He was exhausted. His mana was completely drained from the outbreak. He couldn't cast a single skill. The mutated priest let out a guttural roar and lunged with its claws, massive, fast, furious. Lin Luo dodged by the thinnest possible margin and reached into his bag for a blue mana potion. The boss didn't give him a moment's breathing room. It charged again high speed, full force, and knocked him back before he could finish the drink. He'd managed a single sip, half a sip really. He was still on the floor when the boss raised its staff. Red energy ribbons wrapped around him blood entanglement, locking him in place. His remaining power was almost nothing, but he channeled it all into his staff and fired a wave of dark purple energy. The boss jumped to dodge, and that was exactly what Lin Luo needed. The attack wasn't aimed at the boss. It spread across the floor, sinking into the piles of lizard man corpses scattered across the cavern. While the boss had been preoccupied with the fight, Lin Luo had been quietly infecting every dead body in the room. He stood back up, mana replenished, health dangerously low, staff raised. The boss stared at him in confusion. How does a human recover that fast? Lin Luo didn't explain, he just triggered the final move. A massive skin explosion consumed the center of the cavern in crimson energy, not targeting the boss directly, but igniting the viral pressure stored in every corpse around it. Infected flesh and blood rained down in every direction. No amount of regenerated health could withstand that. The boss's body lost its structural integrity and collapsed. Kill confirmed, level jump to 20, attribute points, skill points, and a shower of loot orbs floating through the settling dust. Among the rewards, a gold level Crimson Fury staff, a massive boost to spirit and critical hit chance. Bizarre new ability on his skill tree called Alzheimer's technique causes targets to forget their own skills or freeze in place. He also unlocked Influenza virus to round out his arsenal, and used the summoning skill to pull forth 2 spectral lizardman warriors. He put them to work gathering loot while he checked the altar one final time. A rare demonized rune floated above the stone platform, upgradable, rare, the kind of item powerful guilds fought wars over. He grabbed it. A completion banner appeared, perfect pass reward, 100,000 experience points, 10,000 gold coins, a resurrection cross. He leveled up 4 more times and walked out of the realm at level 24. Outside the portal, Sister King and Leon Yanning were still waiting along with a row of masked bodyguards at rigid attention. When the portal rippled, everyone assumed a failed team was stumbling out. Then one person stepped through, battered, yes, but alone. Sister King started to say something comforting about losing teammates. Leon Yanning rushed forward to ask about the rest of his group. Lin Lu explained calmly that he'd gone in solo. The guards started whispering immediately liar, braggart, trying to impress the girl. Lin Lu ignored them and started walking away to sell his materials. Leon Yanning chased after him. The guards kept doubting. And then the red portal began to shrink. Sister King watched it disappear entirely, and she knew exactly what that meant. A secret realm only vanishes once it's been completely cleared. The boy had done it alone. In a forest clearing, Leon Yanning caught up with him breathless, urgent, telling him that she believed every word even if no one else did. He turned around, remained characteristically unbothered. She took a breath and asked if he'd form a team with her for the upcoming exam. He pointed out reasonably that a D-rank priest wasn't exactly the premium choice for a partner. She looked at him and said she only wanted to team up with someone she knew and trusted. He thought about it for about 3 seconds, then agreed. That evening, Lin Lu was stretched out on his couch surrounded by more money than most people see in a decade. Between the secret realm loot and the monster materials he'd sold, he'd cleared over 50,000 gold coins. Given the exchange rate, that translated to well over 500,000 yuan, more than his mother made in an entire year out on the Starry Sea. He was still processing that number when Tang Cheng kicked the door open in a panic. Convinced something terrible had happened, Lin Luo pointed at the heavy metal chest on the floor, bronze-level beast sword and armor inside, already paid for, waiting. Tang Cheng stared at it, stared at his friend, offered to call him dead in exchange for the gear. Lin Luo pushed him toward the door and told him to get ready, they were aiming for a top 10 university. Meanwhile, a very different kind of conversation was happening at the Leon family estate. Leon Yanning's father was furious. She'd turned down a guaranteed victory by rejecting a team offer from the Dongfang family's S-rank heir. She defended herself by describing what she'd witnessed, a D-rank priest clearing an entire secret realm by himself. Her father called it a childish lie. Then Sister King walked in and confirmed every word. The father went quiet for a long moment, then told them to do whatever they wanted. The day of the exam arrived at the base of the trial tower, a structure that spiraled into the sky above a giant waterfall, floor after floor after floor, 999 of them total. Legend said anyone who reached the 1000th floor would become a deity. Most geniuses dreamed of hitting the 20th. Reporter Bing Bing narrated for the live audience, while the leaderboard displayed names like Murang Shuhan, the Angel, and Dongfang Hai, the Dragon Rider. In the crowded square, Tang Cheng was visibly nervous about their mystery third teammate until Leon Yanning appeared through the crowd. He practically levitated. From a balcony above, Dongfang Hai watched with cold eyes and forced Yang Han, a rank magic swordsman, onto his team by sheer authority. Yang Han abandoned his previous partners without hesitation, his mind already fixed on Leon Yanning and the fact that she'd chosen someone else. At the tower entrance, Murang Shuhan spotted the trio, noted it was unusual, and shifted her focus to her real goal, not just a high rank, but the world's marvelous artifact waiting for the champion. A massive pillar of light signaled the start of the exam, and the students were teleported inside. Lin Luo's team materialized in a dark, rocky world. A pack of demonic dogs charged from the shadows immediately. He raised his staff and Leon Yanning stepped in front of him. Her spirit frost maiden form activated, and a massive wave of ice swept across the floor, freezing the entire horde into crystal statues in under 2 seconds. She told him to stay back, she'd handle protection. Lin Luo stood behind her with his staff, feeling the mild sting of having his moment stolen before it could begin. From a control room, instructors watched holographic displays candidates racing through floors with everything on the line, a 12-hour window to climb as high as possible. The 7th floor flag was already moving. Some teams were flying. Observers noted that Dongfang Hai and a swordsman named Chen Fang were leading, but Leon Yanning's team had somehow claimed 3rd place. The cameras revealed why. A white-haired Ice Maiden clearing rooms. While sitting against a rock in the background, Lin Luo watched with the energy of someone waiting for a bus. The instructors labeled him a loser immediately. Riding coattails. Dead weight. From her own viewing room, Sister King sipped tea and ignored all of it. 3 hours later, the courtyard outside the tower was filling with stretchers and screaming students. The higher floors were eating people alive. Monsters were strong enough to destroy recording equipment, meaning no surveillance past the 15th floor. Leon Yanning's team had dropped to 37th place, exactly what the instructors had predicted for a team supposedly being carried by one girl. On the 19th floor, she and Tang Chang were leaning against ice shards, breathing hard. She'd pushed them to a terrifyingly high level and felt like she was hitting her limit. And then Lin Luo walked past them, completely clean, completely calm, and announced he was taking the lead. Tang Chang looked at his information panel and nearly choked. Level 26, the highest among all current candidates by a significant margin. Lin Luo spotted a frozen monster and asked Leon Yanning to thaw it. He had a plan. Monsters live in packs, he explained. A terrified survivor runs back for reinforcements. Let it go. He told his teammates to prepare for a massive level up and smiled with total confidence. The thawed creature roared, panicked, and sprinted away. The ground started shaking, not just from returning reinforcements. From the cliffs in the distance, 3 dark silhouettes watched competitors who deliberately lured every monster on the floor toward Lin Luo's team. A horde of dozens goblins, mixed creatures came pouring over the hills. Something launched at Leon Yanning and an explosion of energy intercepted it midair. Lin Luo stood forward, staff raised, spectral red-skinned lizard men materializing around him. He pointed and they charged, tearing through the horde with brutal efficiency. His friends watched in stunned silence, assuming it was equipment-based. Then the dark red aura exploded around him, and the Black Death outbreak detonated outward in a white dome of energy. Dozens of monsters disintegrated into black dust simultaneously. The experience notifications came so fast they stacked on top of each other. Tang Chang realized his friend had been right about just waiting for the level up. Lin Luo wasn't done. He formed a ball of energy and slammed it into the ground, sending a wave across the entire mountain range. Every remaining creature on the floor died. Bare goblin corpses dissolved into trails of green energy as far as anyone could see. Leon Yanning asked carefully if he had a wide-range poison skill. He clarified contagious, not poison. She thought about it for a moment. Bear goblins are naturally resistant to toxins, so this couldn't be chemical, and realized what that meant. Disease-based, viral, a virus that spreads from host to host, multiplying until the sheer volume triggers a quality change. She told him he was smart for that. He appreciated the compliment. By this point, a dense green cloud of viral miasma had expanded to cover the entire 19th floor. Tang Chang started sweating, asking nervously if he was going to die. Lin Luo told him he was actively controlling the spread to protect allies. Perfectly safe on their end. Then his expression turned cold and he looked toward the 3 saboteurs on the distant cliff. Those 3 were not on his side. The saboteurs were laughing, sprinting through a different section of the tower, estimating they'd hit the next floor in 10 minutes. Then the environment above them went dark. They looked up. A massive black shadow was descending through the trees. The miasma hit them like a wall, coughing, choking, veins appearing on skin. The female student screamed from a sudden crushing headache. The leader collapsed, realizing he had to exit the trial immediately or die. Meanwhile, the instructors outside were having a different kind of crisis. A bold senior official had noticed a yellow-orange glow leaking from the 19th floor. Candidates were teleporting out in groups, screaming that their antidotes weren't working against something that wasn't poison. A medic-confirmed viral illness, dark spots on the skin, not a standard monster ability. The nearest monster capable of this was typically found on the 50th floor. One instructor looked at the pattern everyone between the 19th and 25th floor infected, except Lin Luo's team, and started connecting the dots. They noted the silver lining. S-rank students had already moved past the danger zone. On the 26th floor, Dongfang Hai was cutting through insect monsters behind a purchased barrier, while Yang Han praised his family's intelligence network. Dongfang Hai had brought special items to nullify the local threats. He was determined to break the city record at 28 floors. He looked toward the distance with the pity of someone who assumed their victory was already written. On a different floor, Murang Shuhan's team was in serious trouble, swarmed by hundreds of rock monsters targeting them specifically. Then her teammate Sister May dropped the act entirely. She confessed she'd smeared them with honey that attracted aggressive monsters, and she'd made a deal with Dongfang Hai help him win, and he'd marry her into his prestigious family. Murang Shuhan looked at her former friend with quiet pity. Then she spread her divine wings and prepared to exit the tower. She'd already qualified for the individual competitions. The throne could be taken back there. Back at Lin Luo's floor, the team reached the rocky entrance to the 20th level gaping stone jaws, purple eyes carved into the arch. Tang Cheng was buzzing with excitement. Being with Lin Luo had turned what should have been a grueling climb into a harvest operation. Leon Yanning raised a concern. His skills were powerful, but they had limits likely related to magic consumption or the high magical defense of monsters on upper floors. Lin Luo agreed. His abilities worked best in enclosed spaces where the viral spread had nowhere to dissipate. Open air with good circulation cut his effectiveness significantly. She raised another issue, the collateral damage. Other candidates were being caught in the plague and losing their rankings. Tang Cheng called it self-defense. Lin Luo just smiled. He laid out his philosophy plainly: in a world of constant struggle, you fight to survive. If professionals can't handle a setback like this, they have no hope against actual monsters or deep-sea aliens. His teammates looked at each other. Then they both agreed to stand by his side and stepped through the portal. The 20th floor was a tropical plain palm trees, reptilian beasts, blazing heat. Tang Cheng immediately switched to chaos mode, using his fallout technique to draw every monster in range toward him. He ran, he gestured rudely at the creatures. He made absolutely certain they were focused entirely on him. He sprinted back toward the group, screaming for the virus to be released, while Lin Luo joked that any monster trying to swallow Tang Cheng would probably get constipated. When a beast lunged, Leon Yanning stepped in with a blue ice barrier and a blade of frost that split the air. She wasn't letting anyone hurt her friends. A massive army of monsters was closing in from the horizon. Lin Luo raised his staff. A towering pillar of black energy erupted Black Death Outbreak at full force and obliterated everything in its path. Outside the tower, the officials watching the leaderboard celebrated Dongfang Hai and a swordsman named Chen Fang reaching the 27th floor, a new city record. They expressed mild disappointment that Murang Shuhan had stopped at 26. Then a guard arrived with a report that sent everyone's mood in a different direction entirely. The viral miasma from the 19th floor was spreading upward. In just 4 hours, it had consumed everything up to the 24th floor. Over 3,000 candidates affected, fewer than 100 elite students still active in the upper levels. The officials started considering the possibility this wasn't a natural boss, that it was man-made, that someone had brought it in deliberately. They feared the fallen cult alien god worshippers, destroyers by purpose, and hoped the S-class students were strong enough to resist whatever was coming. On the 26th floor, the team stepped out of a blue portal after another successful hunt. Tang Cheng had hit level 20, Leon Yanning was at 25. When they asked about Lin Luo, he told Dom he'd reached level 30. Then he opened his skill tree and stared at the 4 new abilities that had unlocked. Reproductive excitation, genital warts, gonorrhea spread, syphilis outbreak. He stood completely still for a moment, wondering if the system had a sense of humor. Then he learned every single one of them, grinning in a way that made his teammates deeply, profoundly uncomfortable. Leon Yinin asked what he'd learned. He told her it was better if she didn't know. She mentioned probably to change the subject that level 30 meant he could perform his second job transfer. He reached into his bag and pulled out a hidden job transfer book he'd looted from the secret realm. A red ritual circle manifested behind him as he activated it, and 2 unique hidden options floated into the air. Dark Lord, an undead-themed profession promising immense power at the cost of turning him into a skeleton and permanently destroying his charisma. Evil Doctor, a profession focused on non-responsible surgeries, random disabilities, organ transplants. The thrill of a blind box where he has all the fun and the enemy bears the consequences. He selected Evil Doctor without hesitation. The system confirmed the transfer and issued a unique hidden quest called Silver Heart. Kill a silver-level humanoid boss and claim its heart within 1 month. He told his teammates they had to part ways here. He needed to reach the 30th floor where the only viable silver humanoid boss target lived, and he had to do it alone. Tang Chang accepted the logic. They'd already made a fortune, reaching 26, largely because of him. Leon Yanin grabbed his hand before he could leave. She pressed her stand-in puppet into his palm, a rare item her family had given her specifically to absorb a lethal blow. He tried to refuse. She told him his safety was the most important thing to her as a friend. She almost said something else, stopped herself, told Tang Chang to teleport them out and jogged away before things could get more complicated. Lin Luo stood alone in the tower, holding the gift, and headed upward. The 27th floor was a hellscape of skeletal hounds, fast, aggressive, overwhelming in numbers. A team led by Yang Han was barely surviving when they ran into Dongfang Hai and a student named Pan Chen. Rivals cooperating out of mutual desperation, they carved a path together toward the exit at Lava Lake. Then the lake erupted, and the Hellhound King rose from the flames drawn out early by Dongfang Hai's dragon, which shared its fire attribute and looked like a perfect meal. The 2 elite students leaped into the air in a massive display of lightning and fire to engage the boss. Meanwhile, back outside the tower, Leon Yaning was in a daze after touching Lin Luo's hand. Tang Chang noticed her blushing and officially declared her his sister-in-law. She protested. He revealed he'd found the love letter she'd written to Lin Luo years ago, hidden in a drawer. He explained that Lin Luo had been struggling back then, strange dreams, thoughts of another world, and couldn't respond. The Ice Maiden went quiet, feeling a deeper understanding of who he was. Young Hans stumbled out of the tower, bloodied and exhausted, and immediately tried to approach her. Tang Cheng stepped in front of him and told him to get lost. That was his sister-in-law. Young Han's face went through several shades of disbelief, then rage. He demanded to know when a D-rank professional had earned that kind of relationship with her. Tang Cheng told him to check the leaderboard. Yang Han looked. Lin Luo was on the 27th floor. The crowd started whispering. Some suspected cheating. Others started wondering if the priest had been carrying the team all along. City guards arrived and escorted Yang Han to a hall where officials grilled him about abnormalities in the tower. He reported the Hellhound King waking early, confirmed he'd seen no viral fog. The officials analyzed this. Dongfang Hai's team never encountered the virus, which meant the Black Death wasn't a natural part of the tower. Then a masked guard rushed in with an update. The virus had stopped spreading at the 26th floor, and Lin Luo had reached the 27th. The council fell into complete silence. A D-rank priest on the 27th floor alone was something they had no category for. Yang Han demanded punishment. The officials noted carefully that special items help against monsters but don't explain this. They agreed to investigate Lin Luo's background carefully, without accusations. In her private quarters, Sister King had already figured out the truth. She laid it out for Leon Yanin. Every candidate between the 19th and 25th floor was infected except their team. His history with the secret realm. The pattern was obvious. Once the chaos settled, people would identify him as the source of the plague. Powerful families whose children lost rankings because of him would come looking for revenge. Leon Yaning went pale, asked what they could do to protect him. Sister King pointed directly at her niece and said she was the only solution. The plan had to stay secret from her father. The girl clasped her hands to her chest with total resolve and said she'd do whatever it took. On the 27th floor, Lin Lu was testing his reproductive excitation skill on a pack of hellhounds. The debuff was impressively, disturbingly working. Then a geyser of fire erupted from below and the Hellhound King burst from the lava, covered in fresh wounds left by the previous team. It had retreated to recover, and now it was taking its frustration out on the nearest available target. Lin Luo raised his staff, Green Energy, coiling around it, and decided he would happily finish a boss that someone else had already softened up. The king gathered a massive red charge in its mouth for a powerful attack, and Lin Luo hit it with Alzheimer's disease. The magical charge fizzled out into smoke. The king stood there, confused, the power draining from its jaws. Lin Luo moved in immediately. Skin explosion. Blood fever. Pain intensification, the full package, reserved for bosses. The king screamed as its skin cracked and its body burned from the inside. Then, still breathing, it turned and sprinted away. Lin Luo realized what was happening. Just a moment later, the dog was pretending to enter a berserk state to buy cover for its escape. A sneaky, intelligent animal running away while it still could. He refused to let it escape and fired a stream of dark purple mental confusion energy. The king became dazed and disoriented, losing its authority over the pack. The surrounding hellhounds, confused and leaderless, turned on their own king in a frenzy of fire and fury. Kill confirmed. Level 31. Valuable loot magic crystals, a flame shield scroll and a silver level burning dagger. He checked the time. 2 hours left before the exam ended. He had to reach the 30th floor. In a luxury hotel, Murang Shuhan was dealing with the news that her treacherous teammate had disappeared. She ordered the girl's family, financially ruined and exiled within 3 days, then moved on to the tower rankings. She expected Dongfang Hai at the top. Instead, she found a D-rank priest on the 28th floor. She remembered him, remembered Leon Yanning's faith in him, remembered the mysterious fog. She touched her chin with a small smile and decided that a D-rank priest with this many hidden trump cards was more exciting than threatening. If she could bring him into the Murang family, she decided she wouldn't even mind if he kept the championship prize. Outside the tower, the crowd watching the leaderboard had devolved into conspiracy theories. The Lin family was providing him with high-level items. He had to be cheating. No priest climbs this high. Leon Yanning tried to defend him. Tang Cheng told her not to bother with people who couldn't accept reality. Sister King realized that at this rate, Lin Luo wasn't just going to break the city record, he might go national. The city record was 26 floors. The national record, held by a necromancer named Yungem from Binhai, was 29. Sister King shut down the conversation quickly when Leon Yanning recognized the name, preferring to leave that history buried. Instructor Li Yu appeared to offer a warning. The Education Department, the City Council, and multiple powerful families were aggressively investigating their progress. Tang Cheng gave a confident thumbs up. Lin Luo had already planned for this. His instructions were simple: blame everything on him. Inside the tower, the 28th floor was a rugged mountain range filled with level 40 harpies and level 42 bloodthirsty willow trees. Dongfang Hai was crawling through it on hands and knees, covered in wounds, his dragon barely alive. He vowed to surpass Jung M's record. Pride was the only thing moving him forward at this point. A blonde harpy targeted him, then suddenly stopped midair and turned towards something else in the distance. He looked through the trees and found harpies pinned to the ground by vines, gagged, restrained in a way that looked less like a battle and more like a scene from a nightmare. Lin Luo walked calmly into frame, white robes still spotless. He noted clinically that his reproductive excitation skill worked across different species. He glanced at the chaos, decided he'd love to farm experience here but was running low on time and moved toward the next floor. Dongfang Hai watched from behind a rock, his expression turning murderous. He couldn't understand how a support class had this kind of control over an entire ecosystem. He needed to win, needed to be champion. He forced his injured dragon into a final stand. The next area was a frozen mountain lake level 43 ice poison, toads clustered around the water, temperature dropping to 100 degrees below freezing. Entering the water without preparation would mean death. Lin Luo used the flame shield scroll he'd looted from the Hellhound King, learned it, waited for the mutation. The penicillin antibody shield replaced it, a passive ability that began immediately devouring the elemental cold in the environment, generating permanent cold antibodies. The biting chill faded from his body within seconds. He could survive magma, acid, extreme environmental conditions. He started running across the frozen landscape toward the next floor. Behind him, Dongfang Hai followed in agony, burning expensive flame stones just to keep his body temperature above fatal. Watching Lin Luo stride through the snowfield without effort, he snapped. He turned to his red baby dragon and forced it to swallow a green elixir, a medicine designed to double its strength by burning its own life essence. Then he commanded it to launch a lethal sneak attack. The dragon lunged through the air. Lin Luo stopped, surprised there were no dragons on this floor. He recognized the creature as Dongfang Hai's pet and had no idea why he was being targeted. He materialized his spectral lizard man to buy time. The dragon tore through them in a wall of fire, but the sacrifice bought him the observation window he needed. High defenses, too sturdy for a quick kill through direct damage. He needed a different approach. He channeled dark energy through his staff and triggered mental confusion, hitting the dragon directly in the head. The beast, when dazed, lost its sense of direction and flew straight back into Dongfang Hai's position. Dongfang Hai screamed commands. The dragon crashed into the rocks in front of him. Lin Luo took a position on a high cliff, looked down, and assessed the dragon's natural resistance, let it shake off confusion quickly. So he stopped targeting the pet and reappeared directly behind Dongfang Hai instead. The young master recovered just fast enough to mock the priest for engaging in close range, then wound up as a signature strike wrapped in yellow energy that consumed the entire area in an explosion. When the smoke cleared, Dongfang Hai stood over charred earth and laughed. Then Lin Luo appeared behind him, completely unscathed, and asked calmly about the dragon. The young master froze. His pet lay motionless in the snow. His ultimate strike hadn't left a scratch. He screamed. Lin Luo looked down at him and suggested very calmly that he might lose the ability to scream if his tongue were removed. Dongfang Hai vowed revenge in the individual competition and hit his emergency return to escape. Lin Luo watched him vanish and noted that it was embarrassing to act tough while fleeing. Then he mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that he'd left a special gift for the dragon cub. Outside the tower, Bing Bing announced that only one candidate remained inside. The crowd assumed Lin Luo would be eliminated next. Then Dongfang Hai materialized in their midst, tattered, panting, barely holding himself together. And his dragon looked extremely nauseous. The dragon released a massive geyser of green liquid over the surrounding students. Drenched in stinging slime, the crowd scrambled for respirators as the stench became unbearable. Dongfang Hai stood in pure humiliated horror, realizing the priest had sabotaged his own pet, vowing revenge while struggling not to vomit. At the Dongfang family residence, the patriarch and a visiting ancestor were informed of the heir's elimination and public disgrace. Both went pale, neither spoke for a long moment. Back on the 28th floor, Lin Luo faced an ice poison toad known for self-destructing on death. He hit it with skin explosion, it swelled grotesquely, then dropped Alzheimer's on it before it could detonate. The monster forgot its own self-destruct skill and shriveled silently instead of exploding. Among the loot, an ice poison bead which increased spirit power by 1 point when consumed. Lin Luo stared at it. Most attribute-boosting items had strict consumption limits. Then he had an epiphany. These toads always destroying the beads in the process. High-level professionals skip the lower floors. Low-level ones lack the specific control skills to prevent the self-destruction. Nobody had ever systematically harvested this floor. He was standing in a treasure trove nobody else knew existed. He moved fast. Using his vantage from high ledges, he cleared the valley in waves, drawing more monsters with noise of each kill, letting the crowds form before striking. He held out his hand, formed a pulsing sphere of dark energy, and used the infected corpses as incubators for a massive viral load. Black Death outbreak. A wall of black smoke consumed the valley floor. He hit level 36, collected nearly 250 ice poison beads. He absorbed them all and watched his spirit energy, his mental power, the engine of all his casting double. The surge activated the demonized rune he'd been carrying since the secret realm. It absorbed the surrounding energy and souls, unlocking new effects, massive mana recovery, enhanced attributes, and the ability to transform into any creature he'd killed. The last limitation on his combat potential had just been removed. Then a massive shadow fell over him. The Ice Poison Toad King level 45 lethal freezing abilities visibly irritated that its subordinates were gone. Lin Luo used the rune to transform into a small white squirrel, zipped behind the confused boss, and noted that stealth transformation was perfect for assassinations. He triggered a specialized combo on the Toad King's rear skin explosion and diarrhea mutation, combined producing a messy, agonizing result that severely wounded the creature. The king retaliated with a beam of freezing light that carved a wall of jagged ice directly across his path. He spun his staff and hit the boss with Alzheimer's. It forgot its next attack mid-cast. He jumped in, triggered skin explosion directly on its eyes, blinding it, cutting off its light-based skills entirely. Dark energy erupted around him as he prepared the final sequence. The king screamed not in rage, but in desperation, and Lin Luo realized it was trying to self-destruct. He raised his hand, fired another Alzheimer's wave, and forced it to forget how to trigger the explosion. The boss died confused and unable to fight back a massive burst of black energy, marking the end. 100,000 experience points, level 36 confirmed, a rare drop list that included the Ice King's Gland, a new skill book titled Frozen Light, 5 skill points, and a whip. He learned Frozen Light immediately. The mutation transformed it into ALS spread an incurable paralysis condition, devastating as a control skill in his hands. He consumed Ice King's bead and the system tried to grant him a bone-piercing ability. Instead, a glitch produced adrenaline rush. Intense blue sparks danced across his body. The ability scaled with his enormous spirit power, granting him enough physical strength to no longer fear close-range combat. Outside the tower, students were mocking the battered Dongfang High while medics worked on him. Then the leaderboard updated. Lin Luo had reached the 29th floor. Students muttered about high-level professionals secretly helping him. Couldn't be real otherwise. Then it updated again. 30th floor. Tang Chang and Leon Yanin erupted. The city record previously held by Jung M at 29 was broken. City officials stared at the display and realized they needed to protect this person. In a hotel room, Murang Shuhan watched the news feed with a calm smile and changed her plans. She'd find a way to bring him in rather than fight him. Inside the tower, the 30th floor was a dark cavern filled with bats, and Lin Luo had 17 minutes left on the clock. He triggered a skin explosion that scattered the bats in a dark cloud, then used his rune to transform into a white bat and flew through the chaos, scanning desperately for a humanoid target. He found a vast cemetery, thousands of gravistonas, a stone platform at the center, blood slaves and blood servants patrolling a dark coffin. A silver-haired figure in a high-collared suit lay sleeping inside. System identification, silver level Fallen Baron. He transformed back to human form midair, dropped into position, and slammed a massive energy blast into the coffin. The explosion was devastating. He expected an instant kill. Dark blood and smoke rose from the crater and reorganized. The Baron reformed from the liquid, tall and composed, like being blown apart was a minor inconvenience. It let out a monstrous, wide-mouthed scream that created a physical shockwave, sending Lin Luo skidding backward. He activated Adrenaline Rush. His silhouette transformed into a dark form traced with golden constellations, and the power surge was like nothing he'd felt before. He was fast enough to dodge the Baron's follow-up strikes, fast enough to evade the two shadowy blood clones that split from the boss's body. He slid across the battlefield, mocking their speed as the fight escalated into chaos. Dark red blood flames erupted around the Baron, and Lin Luo's resistance shield absorbed the impact cleanly. He fired a spinning vortex that staggered the boss, watched the body struggle to hold together, and realized the core problem: as long as the Baron had access to blood, it could regenerate indefinitely. He looked at the liquid-bodied clones, looked at his ale spread skill, made a decision. He summoned a barrage of needles and drove them into the blood shadows. Wherever a needle struck, the blood clotted and solidified liquid, turning to stone-like statues. The Baron roared and severed its own arm before the clotting could spread. Smart, tactical, willing to sacrifice a limb to survive. Lin Luo ringed the entire battlefield with hundreds of needles and asked aloud how many more parts the Baron was willing to lose. A massive teal cross descended from the air and trapped the Baron inside it. He walked up calmly, aimed his staff, combined blood fever and pain intensification into a final sequence designed to burn the monster's blood away from the inside out. A massive explosion ended the fight. 150,000 experience points, level 40, 10 standard skills points, and a rare gold skills point, the kind that pushes skills past their normal limits. He spent 7 points to raise his antibody shield to level 7, then used the gold point to push it to level 8. A small winged creature materialized from the upgrade, a penicillin elf, sentient, capable of learning his mutation skills. He named it Green. They walked through the cemetery together. The Baron's rare drops included a beating vampire core necessary for his job transfer and a vial of essence that could transform a human into a half vampire. He also found gold-level equipment, blood wings and the eye of vampire, boosting damage absorption and spell penetration significantly. Then his hand slipped on a skill book titled First Embrace a Vampire Bloodline skill he didn't technically qualify for. His mutation ability overrode the restriction and the spell transformed into T-virus infection. He went completely still when he recognized the name. A world-ending pathogen from his previous life. Turns organisms into zombies, no controllable spread, no upper limit on infection. In a world full of high-level monsters and professionals, an uncontrolled outbreak could be catastrophic. He categorized the skill as too dangerous to use to and locked it away. With 5 minutes left on the exam clock, he used the vampire core to complete his hidden mission. Intense energy flooded through him as the system confirmed the change. Evil Doctor, the only hidden class of its kind. 2 unique items appeared, non-responsible surgery and a specialized scalpel. He looked at them, looked at his hands, and embraced exactly what he'd become. Outside the tower, the crowd watched the countdown with a mix of hope and smug certainty that he'd be eliminated. Bing Bing praised him live on air as a hard-working role model for the city. Tang Chang and Leon Yanning found this deeply funny, knowing how rarely he studied seriously. Various powerful organizations were already moving, some to recruit him, some to target him, one ordering subordinates to make contact before his files could be connected to a prestigious family. The deputy city guard quietly ordered 2 elite guardians to protect him, aware that angry candidates from powerful families were already planning revenge for the plague. Lin Luo emerged from the tower. Bing Bing announced him as the first place winner. The crowd immediately surged forward students, screaming that he'd ruined their exam results, demanding a fight. And then Leon Yanning sprinted through the mob at high speed. Before he could react, Shilipit grabbed him and pulled him into a kiss right there in front of everyone. The crowd went absolutely silent. Several students in the mob recognized her as a member of the Leon family and immediately rethought the situation. If the Leon family was backing him, his behavior in the tower made perfect sense. He wasn't reckless, he was protected. The mob mentality shifted in real time. Leon Yanning broke the kiss with moist eyes and flushed cheeks, told him to go home and rest, and jogged away before anyone could ask questions. Lin Luo stood in the middle of the crowd, completely stunned, trying to figure out what had just happened. That night, walking through a narrow dim street with Tang Chang, Lin Luo explained quietly that she'd done it to protect him, a social shield against the crowd. Tang Chang asked what it tasted like. Lin Luo ignored the question. Then he sensed something above and looked up. A man with spiky orange hair and red-tinted sunglasses was standing on a high-tension wire, watching them. The man said he'd been sent by the head of the Leon family with a message: stop dreaming about a relationship with the girl. He called Lin Luo a toad trying to eat swan meat. Lin Luo asked what would happen if he insisted anyway. Before the man could answer, a massive sphere of dark green and black mist crashed into the alley, trapping all of them inside. The 2 city guardians watching from a distance recognized it immediately, the fallen cult, moving faster than anticipated. The barrier contained a portion of the Lord of the Dark Mist's power. Epic level. Far too high for what should have been a simple retrieval mission. They powered up everything they had and attacked the barrier from outside, hoping the Leon family's man could buy a few minutes. Inside the void-like mist, the man with red glasses summoned a massive red axe and stood back to back with the boys. Tang Chang was sweating through his clothes, unable to understand why a legendary figure from a century ago would waste resources targeting rookies. Then a woman with green hair and black clawed armor stepped from the shadows, Master Xiaoman. She was flanked by hooded monsters and carried an artifact created specifically to ensure no escape. She was bored by the gold-ranked fighter opposing her, and commanded her subordinate Wolf 13 to deal with him while she attended to the main attraction. Wolf 13 launched, crashed into the red glasses man's barrier, and an explosion of ice shards marked the collision. Xiaoman approached Lin Luo directly, told him she'd worked hard to find him, invited him to join the Night Watch. Excellent benefits. One of their 13 masters, an old man with poison abilities, wanted to take him on as a personal disciple. Tang Cheng made panicked noises in the background. Lin Luo asked if the Night Watch was just another name for the fallen organization. Xiaoman called it a misunderstood label. Said they were the real saviors of the world, believers in the evil god as the only sustainable future. She leaned close, placed a finger under his chin, and spoke about philosophy with the confidence of someone used to being found compelling. He told her no. Her expression cooled immediately. She commanded Ghost 27 to descend from above and capture the boy by force. The cloaked figure reached out with a pale gnarled hand and froze. His eyes glazed. He forgot the next steps of his own summoning spell. A blast erupted from his own body, and Ghost 27 threw his head back and screamed. Alzheimer's disease mutation, precisely targeted. The cultist collapsed with his summoned ghosts, dissolving into nothing around him. Xiaoman dismissed it as a backlash and moved in herself, commanding massive demonic flowers with toothy mouths to swarm the group. Tang Cheng screamed at his friend to run. Lin Luo didn't move. He triggered mental confusion, disappeared, and reappeared inches from Xiaoman's face. She reacted instinctively. Dark energy charged in her palms, tendrils wrapping around what she was certain was the boy. She laughed as she felt the impact land solidly. Then she looked down and found Ghost 27 crumpled at her feet, asking why she'd attacked him. She'd been completely tricked by an illusion. Lin Luo stood unharmed in the distance, watching her with a cold, measuring stare. She recognized it then: high-level mind manipulation. Dark Priest control skills. This was absolutely not a D-rank professional. She unleashed everything, the Juan Wood realm, a massive surge of dark energy that lit up the sky. Tang Cheng and Lin Luo watched it from a safe cliff nearby. Lin Luo completely composed while his friends worried about the scale. Lin Luo said calmly that she would be the first to die. Xiaoman laughed down at them, challenging him to show his supposed arrogance. Then dark green veins and spots crawled across her skin. She hadn't been touched. She'd kept her distance carefully. It didn't matter. The penicillin elf Little Green had already delivered Black Death outbreak. Xiaoman collapsed into a shadowy void, her consciousness fading. Unable to comprehend how she'd been beaten from a distance she thought was safe. Nearby, the man in red glasses finished his own fight. Wolf 13 had been hit by Lin Luo's biological crisis skill and launched into the air by his own body's rebellion and arrived to offer help. He found the strongest of the three fallen already down. When he asked what class Lin Luo was, the boy said simply, just a priest. The two guardians arrived, frozen in shock at the defeated cultists' members they recognized as famous Night Watch operatives. Lin Luo covered his tracks smoothly, claiming the Leon family had protected them from the cultists. The female guardian let it pass, prioritizing the escalating threat of an unconscious epic-level backed prisoner over pressing a victim for the truth. They left to report to the deputy city guard. Lin Luo watched them go and reflected that becoming as strong as possible, as fast as possible, was now his only real priority. The Fallen had found him. The Night Watch knew his face. The game had changed and there was no ceiling high enough to keep him safe unless he kept climbing. The individual competition began the next day at the stadium, and the announcement of the format was straightforward. One-on-one elimination rounds first, then a defense match for the top 16. Lin Luo walked through his bracket like a man taking a stroll. His first opponent, a B-rank heavy hammer warrior named Jiang Qi, collapsed to the floor in biological agony before he could swing the hammer a second time. The second match ended the same way. His opponent's expensive status, resistance scrolls and antidotes doing precisely nothing against mutations that weren't classified as poison. The crowd demanded the diarrhea skill be banned. The deputy city guard agreed not out of fairness, but because he wanted to force Lin Luo to reveal what else he was hiding. Lin Luo noted, very quietly, that since they hadn't appreciated his gentle methods, he'd have to switch to something significantly more ruthless. Yang Han stepped into the arena next, draped in expensive defensive gear provided by Dongfang Hai, and immediately launched a massive wave of fire down the center of the ring. Lin Luo stood completely untouched behind his barrier and waited for him to finish. Yang Han switched to dual elemental ice and fire combined, and the resulting explosion looked from the stands, like nothing could survive it. The smoke cleared, Lin Luo was fine. He told Yang Han it was his turn now, and expanded a ritual circle beneath the swordsman's feet. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Yang Han thought his equipment had blocked it. Then the itching started. He dropped his sword, began scratching desperately at his legs and groin, screaming that it wouldn't stop. Lin Luo watched with a judgmental expression as gonorrhea and syphilis mutations took hold simultaneously. Yang Han tried to numb the symptoms by encasing his lower body in a thick layer of self-generated frost. Lin Luo pointed out clinically that freezing an area only weakens symptoms, it doesn't touch the source. A red skeletal phantom erupted behind Yan Pain intensification technique activated, and the surge of agony dropped the swordsman face first into the dirt. Officials declared Lin Luo the winner while medical staff rushed the arena. In the medical room, the doctor's diagnosis was grim, the infections were beyond healing magic, and surgical removal was the only option. Yang Han whispered his consent for the procedure, pale and trembling. When word reached Dongfang Hai that his subordinate's condition was permanent and had resulted in castration, the group of students watching fell into a horrified silence. They understood now. Provoking the priest carried consequences far beyond losing a match. The tournament advanced. Murang Shuhan defeated her traitorous former teammate with a single one-sided holy judgment, and activated her compulsion skill on the fallen girl to extract every secret Dongfang Hai had shared. The final four emerged: Murang Shuhan, Lin Luo, Dongfang Hai, and Pan Chen. In the defense phase, Lin Luo stood alone in the center of his arena while no challenger stepped forward. One eventually did Fang Yuan, an A-class forbidden spell mage who surrounded himself with rotating barriers and insisted his empty senses technique made him invincible within a 3-meter radius. He trapped Lin Luo in an earth prison, summoned a massive lightning web, and channeled 3 high-level techniques simultaneously. The lightning crashed harmlessly against the penicillin antibody shield. Lin Luo said it was finally time to show the difference in their levels, and used Alzheimer's to erase the sequence of Fang Yuan's 5-element spell mid-cast. Little green appeared above the mage and triggered a skin explosion. Fang Yuan exploded in green energy. He struggled back to his feet, considered using a forbidden skill with a heavy personal cost, then looked at what had happened to Yang Han and raised his hand in surrender. No one else challenged Lin Luo for the rest of the round. The semi-final against Dongfang Hai was in the most spectacular fashion not a close fight. Lin Luo hit both Dragon and Rider with mental confusion the moment the match began. Dongfang Hai, completely disoriented, delivered a full-force strike directly into the snout of his own dragon. Blood sprayed across the ring. The contract seal on the dragon's forehead began to crack. Desperate to prevent the permanent loss of his companion, Dongfang Hai equipped his family's greatest combat armor and charged with everything he had. Lin Luo moved around every attack, leaving after images in his wake, noting that the vaccinations Dongfang Hai had taken didn't cover reproductive excitation. He told the young master to enjoy the experience. Dongfang Hai's face became a dazed, blushing mask as a hallucination replaced reality, a gorgeous humanoid female dragon in his mind's eye. He lunged at the neck of his actual red dragon, hugging it tightly, calling it a beauty. The stadium went silent in collective nausea. The dragon eventually threw its head back in a scream of agony and shoved its master off. Then, in the hallucination's peak, Dongfang Hai plunged his sword into the dragon's backside. Blood splattered across the arena floor. The illusion shattered via a curse-breaking spell from the family booth. Dongfang Hai stood in the ring, confused, searching for the beauty from his dream. The bleeding dragon stared down at him with murderous rage. He realized what he'd done and started crying, desperately insisting it was a misunderstanding. The dragon broke its contract seal with a sky-shaking roar and flew away, abandoning the arena entirely. The Dongfang family vacated the booth immediately to pursue the escaping creature far more valuable to them than any tournament prize. Dongfang Hai reached toward the sky in despair, while Lin Luo stood calmly at the far end of the ring. The young master snapped, launched a desperate golden thunder technique, and created a massive explosion that Lin Luo blocked completely with an ice diamond barrier. Lin Luo produced a small blue scalpel. The crowd laughed. Dongfang Hai laughed. He moved through the young master's guard in a single flash, leaving a faint red mark on his chest. As he walked away, he told Dongfang Hai to enjoy the door he'd just opened into a new world. A magical aura enveloped the young master random degeneration mutation, and a beautiful woman stood where Dongfang Hai had been a moment before. The former Dragon Knight collapsed to her knees, high-pitched and panicking, as Lin Luo explained clinically that the weakness was due to the target failing to adapt to an entirely new body structure. Officials declared Lin Luo the winner. The Murang family patriarch, watching from above, immediately sent someone to reject the marriage proposal from the Dongfang family. The final match was announced, Lin Luo versus Murang Shuhan. The Murang family patriarch looked at the track record and decided the risk wasn't worth it. Murang Shuhan turned away with a troubled expression and officially forfeited, making Lin Luo the champion of the individual competition. He was already checking his phone before the forfeit announcement finished. A message from Sister King about Leon Yanning's whereabouts. He left the stadium immediately. In a quiet tea house, Sister King explained that Leon Yanning's father had taken her to Nine Snake Island an urgent matter. They'd be back in 2 months. She handed over a handwritten letter since the island's magnetic field blocked mobile signals. Lin Luo read it. Leon Yanning promised to meet him at Imperial University in 2 months and told him to take care. He asked if she was in trouble. Sister King said she could say no more and moved to leave. Then she stopped and admitted she'd lied about the circumstances but said the girl's feelings for him were real. Walking home alone through moonlit streets, he turned the situation over in his mind. Nine Snake Island. Deep's sea powers. What the Lane family could possibly want with them when golden energy pulsed from his storage space. The Samaru mask he'd looted from the fallen cultist was causing trouble. Transmission screen appeared in its eye sockets, Night Watch communications, operatives requesting backup, and a report about an escaped red dragon being contested by the Guardians near Pale Canyon. He had been coveting that dragon for some time. He put the mask on. It identified him as Operative 872 and gave him access to a virtual plaza and a teleportation function. He was at the canyon within minutes. The red dragon was chained inside an energy dome at the center of a 3-way battle between the Night Watch, the Guardians, and the Dongfang family. He observed from cover, analyzed, and waited for the right moment. He watched a silver-haired elder named Cheong hold off all 3 factions simultaneously powerful enough to keep the upper hand while outnumbered. When the moment came, he walked onto the battlefield casually, agreed to help a Night Watch subordinate suppress the dragon, and immediately betrayed the cultist with a skin explosion. He turned the remaining guards against each other with mental confusion, and the dragon watched the infighting with total bewilderment. He told the creature to thank him for the save. The chaos that followed was massive. Cheong detected the traitor. The Dongfang patriarch arrived seeking revenge, and the guardian officer Xiao Chi-chang identified the mask and realized who was wearing it. An epic realm ancestor of the Dongfang family descended onto the battlefield with enough presence to drive Cheong into immediate retreat. After the dust settled, Xiao Chi-chang pulled Lin Luo away to a secluded rocky spot and lectured him for using a cultist's mask,
warning him he could have been teleported into a trap.
Then the red dragon appeared on a nearby rock, chains broken, and followed them. Xiao Chi-chang urged him to sign a contract immediately. He produced a stone tablet from a previous boss fight, a triple sticks contract that left her speechless, and the system confirmed the bond. He named the dragon Crimson. She purred in agreement and let him climb onto her back. The deputy city guard, upon receiving the report, shouted in astonishment for a solid 5 seconds before issuing orders. Take the boy and the dragon to a remote base in the Black Steel Mountains for temporary housing, out of sight from the city. Back in his room, he opened the space ring looted from Duchen Gold Adventurers Guild cards, rare materials, colorful python scales, jade dragon horns, and a bone-like Samaru mask among the treasures. He learned a psychic skill called Bewitching, which mutated immediately into Stockholm Self-Deception Syndrome, a low probability of causing a target to become obsessively loyal to the master. He smiled and noted it might be useful in the upcoming tournament. The deputy city guard came to visit that evening, laughed at seeing the World Wonder Prize being poked at like a curiosity, and offered the position of honored guest. Not a standard member, a freelancer full pay. Complete freedom. only occasional special missions, with authority to command guardians below the Gold Realm. Lin Luo looked at the terms, thought about it, accepted. He received an ornate token, a badge, and a hibernation barrier space for pets specifically useful for housing Crimson without drawing attention. He asked what the World Wonder actually did. The deputy city guard sat down and explained. It helps epic professionals enter the legendary realm, and legendary beings ascend to mythical. It was damaged in a battle to retrieve it from deep-sea aliens, then offered as an exam prize to avoid conflict among the top families. The item could be repaired using time-space gap fragments, rule fragments called Hearts of Territory, found in locations guarded by intelligent, organized bosses. Outer space, dungeons, and the Starry Sea. The deputy city guard recommended Imperial University, mentioning that the young master of Nine Snake Island would be attending there as a hostage, a fact that sharpened Lin Luo's expression immediately. He requested permission to use the Guardian network to send a letter to Leon Yining. The official agreed without hesitation. Fame had turned the city's strange skyscrapers draped in advertisements for his signature priest coats and branded shampoo, fans mobbing him in the streets, one girl aggressively offering to show him a belly button tattoo as proof of devotion. He escaped into a back alley, checked his equipment, and realized that as a level 40 professional in his second transformation, his current staff was holding him back. Murang Shuhan appeared at the alley entrance, scattered the crowd with a single warning, and walked him into her family's private showroom. She offered him a level 40 epic great magic staff from the family treasury massive spirit boost, spell penetration, critical hit scaling, advanced skills for a friendly price of 800,000 gold coins. He paid it, stocked his inventory with new equipment and consumables, and traveled to the Black Steel Mountains to say goodbye to the city. Dressed in new combat gear, mounted on Crimson the Flame Dragon, Lin Luo pointed toward the horizon and gave the command to fly chasing rule fragments, repairing a world wanderer, and becoming something the world hadn't yet found a name for.